So, welcome everyone to our first Thursday um, talk presentation uh, webinar series. We've been doing this for 2 years now, and we're extremely excited to have Sabine Castro speak with us this evening and give her presentation on youth advocacy and also talk about her organization that she founded, Dolphin Defenders. It is September 4th, 7:15 p.m. And I'd like to get started. I'm going to read Sabine's background, and also make some announcements before Sabine gets started. So first of all, again, welcome everybody for joining us this evening. It's a real pleasure uh, that everyone could be here with us. And this promises to be a very exciting and informative presentation this evening. Sabine's talk is called Youth Advocacy and Marine Conservation. She is the founder of Dolphin Defenders. She's a 16-year-old ocean advocate from Hunter College High School in New York City who is very involved in wildlife conservation, environmental science, and youth activism. She is an ocean ambassador for the Manta Trust, a nonprofit focusing on global manta and devil ray research and conservation efforts, an ambassador for the World Water Hub, an organization that promotes global water conservation, and the founder of Dolphin Defenders, an international youth-led marine conservation initiative for raising ocean awareness and amplifying youth voices. I love that. In building Dolphin Defenders, she has connected with hundreds of youth internationally and created a large network of youth in marine conservation and ocean awareness. This summer, she will be working on aviation design in environmental science for NASA. And so I want to also mention that we have someone here this evening in our audience who's from Trinidad. So Sabine really has a wide reach. Um, I also want to mention a few brief announcements. Hang on one second. So want to let everybody know that following this talk on Saturday, this Saturday, September 6th at 1 p.m. in the afternoon, we are having a horseshoe crab molt field trip at Plum Beach. And this field trip will be about collecting horseshoe crab molts and then measuring their carapaces to determine the age the horseshoe crabs were at when they actually molted. Promises to be a lot of fun, and we have a great naturalist with us. We have two naturalists with us, and so this will be a formal walk at Plum Beach. So we hope you can attend. It's supposed to rain, but much later in the day. So we don't have a rain date. This is the day we're going out. Coming up on the 13th, September 13th, is a program put on by the City Island Oyster Reef organization. It's called Viva La Sound. And this is an environmental celebration of many environmental organizations that are tabling. There will be demonstrations, oyster demonstrations, and there will also be food from roughly, if I'm remembering this correctly, from last year, about 10 different restaurants. And it's free, it's buffet. The day is a great day, lots of activities. So um, we go to their events so that we can table, network, and meet a lot of people. So that's September 13th. On September 20th, we will be joining with the Coney Island Coalition to host the International Coastal Cleanup, which is all over the world. And we will be doing our part at Kaiser Park, Coney Island Creek in Brooklyn, New York. And that's usually from 9 o'clock to roughly 2:30 in the afternoon. So you could come and help clean up the beach and join us for that event. We're looking forward to that. And then on October 11th, we will send out flyers for everything, but on October 11th, um, Sunken Meadow will be holding an environmental festival. We just got invited to that today, so I will be sending out information to everybody on the contact list. So those are all the announcements. So we do hope you can join us this Saturday for the Horseshoe Crab Mold Field Trip. That promises to be very exciting and it's usually well attended. And so without any further ado, I think Russell may have some announcements as well. Russell, by the way, is the facilitator for this session and all our sessions. And we thank Russell very much for his help and support in this program for NESMIA. Thank you, Russell.
Thank you, Lisa. I just want to quickly let everyone know that we are recording this session. So we will ask you to keep your video and audio turned off as the talk is going. But in the same breath, I want to share, we're very eager to get your questions at the end to expand the conversation in new and fruitful directions. So at that time, we will invite you to turn your video on and jump in with any questions or comments. Thank you so much.
Okay, so Sabine, take it away and welcome.
All right, thank you so much for that introduction. Hi, I'm Sabine, the founder of Dolphin Defenders and a very avid environmental advocate. And I want to tell you a bit about my story getting into environmental activism and then the kind of work that I've done to get here. So to start, I tend to say that getting into environmental activism was kind of an accident, and it's a very funny story. So at the end of 10th grade, I really didn't have any summer plans lined up, but in order to graduate my high school, you need a certain amount of volunteer hours. And so I signed up for the Central Park Zoo's Discovery Guide program, and I plan to fulfill those 75 hours and get it done with and then end the program. But within my first week there, I discovered that I really liked talking with kids and talking with all kinds of people and watching them learn about conservation and then watching them talk to other people about it and just see this whole network expand of people who are becoming more eco-conscious. And I think over that summer, instead of working 75 hours, I worked about 200, which is, quite a difference. But yeah, it was quite the accident, really getting into it. But then after that summer, I decided that I wanted to pursue that kind of professional career. But I wanted to do something that would make a bigger impact. See, I'm not much of an extrovert. I'm kind of an introvert myself. So I never imagined myself standing in protest lines or even lobbying the government, which I actually did this past summer on Capitol Hill. But instead, I wanted to build something in the background and watch other people shine. So that's where Dolphin Defenders initially started. I noticed that a lot of people didn't have the opportunities that I did. Growing up in New York, you can find the New York Aquarium, the Central Park Zoo, the Prospect Park Zoo, the Bronx Zoo. They're all very close among hundreds of different organizations that are tailored towards ocean conservation or environmental education. But in other places, especially inland communities, you don't see that same focus on youth opportunity. So I founded Dolphin Defenders. With the help of the Manta Trust, the World Water Hub, Earth Echo, and that's just to name a few, I learned about how young people can build something meaningful. And as I started building this community of young leaders, people started messaging me. They said, can I join? How can I help? How can one person in a community become a pillar and lead the way? And so we built. And we started with a couple online events. At the very beginning, if you were here, I was talking about our Global Environmental Youth Forum. And this connected people from all over the world, from Peru to Sudan to quite literally 20 countries, which is quite the scope for a first event. And it really only snowballed from there. After that, we had a poetry contest. So we partnered with the United Nations Decade of Ocean Science and Sustainable Development, and we hosted an international poetry contest. and even partnered with a local New York City initiative called the Youth Oceanic Initiative. And with that, we built a poetry collection of people discussing their cultural connection to water and why it's so important to not only have that connection, but share it. And over time, through all of these projects, Dolphin Defenders grew from one person who wanted to step out of the limelight to hundreds of people who wanted to share it together. So I just wanted to share a little bit more about our projects. So I'm going to present this slide and talk through it. And hopefully you can learn more about the work that we do at Dolphin Defenders. All right, can everyone see this?
Looks good on this end.
Yeah. All right, sounds great. So our mission statement is Dolphin Defenders is dedicated to empowering the next generation of ocean advocates through education, entrepreneurship, and environmental policy. And of course, they all start with E because our team wanted to make it alliterate. And yeah, our first step was education. So like I said, my background started in environmental education at the Central Park Zoo. And really that first step to youth advocacy is informing youth of the things that they can do and how they can help and how they can get involved. But one step past it is allowing them the opportunity to take skill sets that they've learned previously, whether in engineering or law or policy or even mathematics, and embed environmental education into it. So something that Dolphin Defenders does that's very unique to our organization is instead of having people do chapters or organization-wide projects, we encourage people to pursue their own projects at the intersection of the environment and something else they're interested in. So whether that be finance or, like on the screen, entrepreneurship, education, policy, we encourage people to explore the intersection of how education and the environment can work together, how entrepreneurship and the environment work together, because the waters, the world is so important to our well-being and everything that we do, and we want to encourage that thinking in young people. So our initiatives include Mission Manta, which is our education-based initiative. It's free lessons that are completely online and accessible at our website down below, dolphindefenders.org. And we wanted to make environmental education more accessible for educators and for youth. So that's one of our initiatives. The second one is Bet Blue. So I was also talking about this earlier. It's super cool. It's an initiative I originally found at my school, but it's spread so far to at least 15 schools across the nation. And essentially what it does is take plastic water bottles and convert them into 3D printing filament. And then you can 3D print objects, in this case, poker chips. And it's a great way of introducing the circular economy and circularity to kids as young as 4 or 5 who are just enjoying building and growing up with that eco-conscious mindset. And lastly, another one of the initiatives I'd like to highlight is Blueprint. It's a youth-driven policy movement. So what we're doing is drafting a Marine Bill of Rights based on our original Bill of Rights. And we're discussing all of the ways that stakeholders can be held accountable for the things that they're putting into the environment and how it's harming our health. And all of these initiatives are different fields where the environment and another field intersect. And that's kind of what we aim for at Dolphin Defenders. Like I also said, we host a variety of events, from the Echoes of the Deep Creative Writing Contest, which I discussed earlier, where we partnered with the United Nations, to the Global Environmental Youth Forum and the Echoes of Tomorrow Symposium that it was directed by Sopan Nandula from India. And also I presented our work at the NOAA SAC Youth Summit, which is, yeah, super interesting. And we was just a way to get more people involved. Of course, creative writing is also another aspect of or another field where the environment and a different field can intersect. And these are just some of the numbers that we've reached so far. So we've reached 60,000 people globally, which is quite a lot for a young organization. We've been around for less than a year. We've also directly educated 482 youth. And by directly educated, I mean we were in the classroom talking with them, providing materials to them, and watching them grow from people who knew about the ocean and the environment to people who wanted to help it. And of course, additionally, we also have our ambassadors and youth-led projects. So we have 3 hubs in Gambia, Ghana, and Rwanda in Africa, and across the United States. And we also have ambassadors who are taking on their own individual projects. One specifically has been receiving a lot of attention for her microbirders project, which is working on birding and ornithology at Cornell, which is great. And yeah, if you're ever interested in us, you can check us out at Dolphin Defenders on Instagram or dolphin-defenders.org and reach out at projectdolphindefenders@gmail.com. All right, that was a lot of words that I was throwing at you, but that's a bit about me and my story. I personally like to do a lot of work at the intersection of engineering and business and the environment. I think that it's very important to create tech-driven ventures moving forward, but Dolphin Defenders is opening up opportunities for all kinds of fields. So now let's talk a little bit about why youth advocacy is important. I mean, we talked about how to get people involved, but we didn't really talk about why we're getting people involved or why we even started. So, I mean, if you're here, you probably know that the world isn't doing so great right now. A lot of our ocean is littered with microplastics. In fact, we have about a credit card's worth of microplastics in our body right now. So it's really critical to protect the ocean and the environment from the harm that we're creating. And the only way to create a mass change that works in the time frame that we need it to, which is quite fast, is to ensure that young people, the next generation, the people that are creating solutions that are leading the world in the next 10 or 20 years, it's important that they know the work that they need to do, that the work that we have done that has harmed the oceans and the environment, and how to fix it. And yeah, in my own experience, I found that youth are often more creative in their solutions than adults are. And that's no shade to adults, but it's just an interesting phenomenon that as we grow older, we see less opportunity in things. And with having talked to hundreds, if not thousands or tens of thousands of people on the subject, I found that the younger people are getting into conservation, the more they're involved in it, the more they enjoy things that are eco-conscious, eco-friendly, and the more they want to do for the animals that they love. So we don't just mean protecting the environment. We mean protecting our future as youth and the next generation as they grow. So now moving on to some challenges and lessons that I've learned over the years, which is quite a few. The first being I'm quite young, so people don't necessarily take me the most seriously. But what I've learned is at any age, regardless of how old or young you are, when you're talking about something you care about, that you're passionate about, people can tell. I mean, right now, I've introduced a lot of funny jokes into this, mostly because I'm not really much of an extrovert, which makes this kind of an interesting experience for me, but also because I really like to talk about this field. I think it's really important. I'm really passionate about it, and I could go on and on about it, which makes it more entertaining to listen to, I hope. Some other challenges I've learned is funding. Grants and sponsorships are often really competitive, which is why with the tools we have available right now and the resources we give at Dolphin Defenders, we're encouraging youth to build their own projects instead of being held back because of their age. Something else I've learned is that when you're scaling something or building something, it's easy to start in theory, but it takes a lot of work. And also something really important I've learned is you can contribute at any age, no matter how old you are, no matter how young you are. If you care about the environment, you can contribute at least one thing a day, whether it's using a metal fork instead of a plastic one, or washing a ceramic plate instead of buying a disposable one. There is there are so many minuscule things you can do on the daily that affect the environment that can actually snowball into a lot of change. So one thing that I'm a firm believer in is that even if you do the smallest thing, which like recycling a bottle cap, it really does mean a lot. Because if everyone in the world did it, it would change the world for the better. So one last thing I'd like to talk about, which in the lessons learned section, is that youth-led doesn't mean youth only. We built dolphin defenders because oftentimes, especially in science and marine conservation, youth aren't heard because they don't have master's degrees, they don't have PhDs, they don't have the credentials to actually be listened to. But just because we're a team of about 40 young people, we're all under the age of 25, doesn't mean that we're exclusively for young people. Just like we felt excluded, we do not want to exclude more people. And that's why we always accept anyone who's interested in conservation, in the environment, in helping out. So over the years in building this, I've made a lot of mistakes. But something else to note is that each one taught me how to lead better and how to build better and how to speak better and learn from everything that I do. So the last bit that I want to talk about is education. I think education is one of the cornerstones of any social movement, and Dolphin Defenders really focuses on building curricula, lesson plans, and campaign resources that are ready to use for all kinds of people, from teachers to youth and everyone in between, from the average citizen to a world leader. We want Dolphin Defenders to show that we're building this for the world, and that means anyone in it. And I think that a lot of other organizations would say the same. We're not working for a select group of people, whether that be youth under the age of 12 or between the ages of 12 to 25, or amplifying our voice for leaders of the world. We want to talk to everyone and learn from everyone. And so, in that sense, Dolphin Defenders likes to say that we have an international scope of hearing. We want to listen to everything that you say and explain ourselves and be heard in the same way. Something else that we do, education related, is student clubs and school partnerships. So we've been working, like I said, BetBlue works with about 15 schools. But aside from that, Dolphin Hunters has reached about 50, 50. And aside from that, we've also built clubs in many different schools and have partnered with a lot of schools to ensure lesson plans and education is being imbued in youth lessons. We offer access to materials, speaking engagements, and co-created projects. So really what we intend to do, besides working directly individually with youth, is we want to work on the large scale, talking with schools and how they can improve their environmental education. And we want to bridge what students learn in the classroom with what they can do in real life to help the environment. So yeah, that was a lot. And I guess I went really fast because it's only 7:40 and that was only about 20 minutes. But I just wanted this kind of talk to be a reminder that no matter what age you are, you can help. And just because we're young doesn't mean we're not doing anything. I think a lot of people have said recently that our generation is quite lazy. And I think it's kind of true. We're stuck to our phones a lot, but that also means that we can use the technology and leverage it to make change like this and remind us that the future is worth working for and healing for. And environmental education is one step to that. All right, I think that's it for me.
Thank you so much, Sabine. That was great and so insightful. And I was taking notes. I'm really bowled over with you have tentacles everywhere, and you have been able to grow a very large youth and student base, or environmental movement that is comprised of youth, which is very unusual in today's world. And I mean, in our group, I don't think we feel that young people should be pushed aside in any way, because these you are the people of the future, of our future, and like people in my generation were the future of the generation that came before. And so, since we're an education organization, we very much welcome your projects, your thoughts, your knowledge, your suggestions, everything that it took for you to grow and come and bring your organization into being. We value that very much. And in today's world, there are so many organizations out there, more than when I was your age, much more. And that's a good sign. That really means that there is a huge reaction to the state of affairs on our planet, because these organizations I'm referring to, I'm thinking about the United States, but all around the world, there has been the conservation of parks and oceans and marine sanctuaries and places where they should be protected. And so much more has developed since I was your age, since I was a young person. And I'm very grateful that that's what is happening today and that you are part of that. That is extremely important. I'd like to open this session up to any questions from the audience. So if you want to ask a question, you could raise a hand. You can put it in the chat. And at that point, Russell can unmute you and also show who you are. And if there's no one who's going to start off, I think I'll be the first one if that's okay. So I'm very, very interested in these projects that you were talking about, Bet Blue, Mission Manta, Blueprint. The Bet Blue one, can you describe that a little bit more? Because I think that one is going to be, if not already, of huge interest by schools everywhere.
Yeah, of course. So it's a project that I created with Earth Echo. If you're familiar with them, it's it was founded by the grandson of Philippe Cousteau.
Ah,
Um, so super or Jacques Cousteau. His name's Philippe Cousteau. It was one of the two. But
Jacques Cousteau is I think was father or grandfather of Philippe Cousteau. Oh,
yeah,
I
it was
think
founded
the
by
father of
Philippe.
Cousteau. Yeah.
Yeah. But regardless, a super familiar name in conservation and especially ocean conservation. And with their help and S.C. Johnson's help, I was able to create an initiative in my school that transforms recycled plastic water bottles into 3D printing filament. And then we take that filament and we have youth print whatever they want, really, whatever they design, but uh, also help them create poker chips because poker chips are inherently plastic with value. Um, but by 3D printing them with 100% recycled plastic, we get an actually valuable token because it recycled that much plastic from and rescued it from the environment. And more than that, it's also entirely customizable because it's 3D printed. So you can put any kind of wording on it, any kind of logo. Um, it's it, and the profit margins are quite high just because all of the materials that we're using are essentially free. They're recycled. So it's definitely an interesting initiative. It's been very successful so far, and we have a lot of interest in it, especially with the kids. And some two things that we plan to do this year are one of them is every year they host a class auction where every class in our elementary school auctions off a piece of artwork. And this year, one of the classes is really wanting to create a grand artwork out of 3D printed modeling. using recycled plastic water bottles, which I think is super cool. And it also shows them that all kinds of solutions are possible, whether in engineering or law. Um, and then another thing we plan to do is take our poker chips that we 3D printed and host a poker gala for the alumni. And that way, everything goes to the association of my school, all the proceeds and profits. But it's just a fun night for them. And also, they get to take home some poker sets afterwards. So, those are just two cool things that integrate circularity and sustainability into everyday life, and actually can make more out of less.
So this is very interesting. I would be interested in talking with you about this more, the Poca Night for our conference coming up in 2026. First of all, I think it's tremendous that you're using a recycled plastic, and I think that our attendees would be very interested in playing with the plastic in a poker chip form. Um, and and also I mean, we could use it at our auction because we always auction off a lot of great things, a lot of marine um, related items. So if we could talk more about this after this session, I would love to. So this is really an outgrowth of the Bet Blue project in collaboration with Philippe Cousteau. Woohoo! Um, Jacques Cousteau was my hero while I was growing up, and I followed all his trips on television because that was the only way you could do it. And now I see you've teamed up with the family, and it's a really smart collaboration. Um, so that's okay. That's one question I had. But before I go on, would anybody like to jump in and ask Sabine or comment on any part of Sabine's talk or ask her a question? Okay, so the next thing I want to ask you, Sabine, is the recycling of bottle caps. So what exactly happens there?
Yes, so that's a great question. So, oftentimes when people recycle water bottles, I don't have one on me to show you. I wish I did, but there's a plastic rim and then the cap. And when you recycle the bottle, you actually have to take the rim apart. And a lot of people don't do this, and it renders plastic water bottles unrecyclable. So, what we do is the first step, we have all the kids sit around this pile, and the team that can remove the most rims the fastest gets to use the 3D printer first. So, it's really fun for them. And then with our bottle caps, we actually ship them to a different company, which we're not officially partnered, so I can't say the name of because they're just starting out. But they're also a youth initiative in New York City. And what they do is they use a kiln to melt down the bottle caps and turn it into jewelry. And I think it's really innovative. I think ours is more innovative, in my opinion. But I really like the way that they're thinking about it. And it's also a symbiotic relationship for the both of us.
Wow, so interesting. I just love these projects, and what makes it so fascinating is that usually you see plastic collecting on the ocean done by large vessels, right, and giant nets. And I'm always trying to think of how could we translate that volunteerism and environmentalism into the classroom in a smaller project. And this bottle cap project, it seems like the right type of project. Of course, the Bet Blue I love, you know, but that's the thing is making environmentalism usable in the classroom and in the field. And I'm sure we're going to see a lot of plastic on the beach at Plum Beach this Saturday, but I don't have a project for that to be able to tell the people who are attending, please pick up the plastic. So I don't have a place to actually send it to. But I would love to work with you more on these kind of ideas and what could be the outgrowth of some of our own field trips, that are actually doable, that are environmental, that are safe, and that could be part of a movement as well. Um, what I also heard you say a little bit about, you touched on you have lesson plans and materials. Oh, Nesme would very much like to use those materials in its Strandline newsletter. We can promote your materials for you through our own contacts, and we have almost 1,400 contacts, almost 1,400 people reading our newsletter, and we have a little over 200 members in our organization. What we would like to see is more youth, because we do have a youth category. And so we would like to see more youth joining. It's free the first year, and getting involved with our organization. And to that end, also, I want to invite you, of course, to our conference to engage youth and to have them come. We have a youth engagement section, and also to do a workshop or two on any of your projects. They would be most welcome, and I think you would have a great attendance and a lot of interest. And so after this session, I would like to continue communicating with you. And first up, the easiest thing for us to do is to promote your lesson plans and educational materials.
Sounds great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So before we leave this evening, I would like to ask, because I see some other people on, if anybody would like to ask Sabine any questions, or ask her about her projects, and how she actually engages youth, how she gets started with her projects. I mean, I see you doing it through really good contacts, Sabine. You know, um, Philippe Cousteau, that's a huge one right there. But yeah, I think that's what it takes, right? It takes you have to think about a project and think about what another entity would get out of it by joining with you and your youth organization, your Dolphin Defenders, let's say. What would be
Right,
good? What would be in it for them as well?
right. It's super important to consider what they're looking for. So I think, honestly, an advantage when it comes to youth organizations is that a lot of, uh, whether it be a company or an entity or another organization entirely, something that they want to show is that they care about youth. It's a very philanthropic pursuit. But it also gives you some leverage, I think, because when you frame it that way, and framing, I can go on about that. Actually, that's a whole story that I'll share in 1 second. But something that you can leverage, especially being young, is that when a company says, "Hey, we want to promote you because it looks good for them," you can also leverage that and say, "Okay, we want this in return." And then there's your relationship. But the Philippe Cousteau part, that was because I was an ambassador for Earth Echo at a point. And this actually leads right into my story. So I was just at Capitol Hill this past summer. I got to talk with a lot of the New York State representatives and senators about recycling infrastructure, specifically the Recycling Infrastructure and Accessibility Act, and promote that. Um, and something that I learned that was super important is not everyone shares the same perspectives that you do, especially about polarizing ideas like conservation. And so you have to frame your pursuit, your goal in a way where they also want to pursue it. So take, for instance, a firefighter who's not necessarily interested in rivers and in the water. Something that you can say, especially for recycling, is that if we don't promote recycling practices for lithium ion batteries, you're going to start more fires, more industrial fires, and more work for an already overburdened workforce. And so, with that framing, you can almost convince people to join your mission, even if it's not necessarily aligned to a T. And that's something that's very useful in the world that I've learned in the past year, because no one's going to share your exact beliefs, but some people are going to agree with you on some things. And when you hit that something, it's really important to build off of it.
That's really good advice, and I appreciate you explaining that for the audience here today, because some areas of environmentalism might be very far away from our marine interests, right? And then you have to really make the connections um, that um, that come close to marine endeavors. You know, you know, you can make a connection to anything, I believe, but you're right, for other entities to that are not solidly marine oriented to become interested in environmentalism, you have to really show them kind of like cause and effect. If you do this, that will happen. If you do the right thing here, then you will prevent forest fires there, you know. So it's very creative thinking on your part and everyone's part, really, to try to understand how to get people involved that maybe simply because you need philanthropic funds to help you with your own cause. And so I believe there's a way to do that. I think you've shown that and demonstrated that. And you know, I'm just listening to your projects, listening to how what they actually do and how you got started, and I find that to be very exciting. And then also, I find that the Noah Sack Youth Summit that you were involved with is extremely interesting. And you know, your tentacles really go far and wide. They're not just local, which is very good. They go throughout the United States, they go throughout the world to other countries, and the response to me seems to be excellent, you know, very good. Otherwise, students wouldn't bother to get involved, or they would only get involved in projects in their own countries. And so, to be part of the larger youth movement speaks volumes. And I want to thank you so much for uh, your leadership in getting this movement started, getting your own project started. And so, if there aren't any further questions or any raised hands anywhere or any comments in the chat, and I will take a quick look in the chat to see if there's anything new here. Okay, wait a minute. I don't know if this is new questions. Okay. Hey, hey, Sabine, your presentation was excellent, clear, engaging, and very well delivered. It goes to show that being young is not an issue when you bring passion and preparation to the table. I also appreciate the important points you raised about recycling plastics, as it's a crucial step in protecting our oceans and environment. Please know that I fully support Dolphin Defenders and Nesmia all the way in their mission and initiatives. And that, let's see if I could figure out who that's from. CCAT. Okay. So that's from CCAT in Philadelphia. So I want to thank everybody here this evening who came to this presentation. And also, I want to thank Sabine, of course. If you if you want to um, hear about any of our other talks in our library archive, um, with membership, you can do that. And so if you're not a member, we welcome you to become a member. And also, you will able to, if you come to our conference in the spring, you should be able to see more of Sabine and hear her talks and her projects there. So Russell, do you have anything else you want to add?
No, I just look forward to working with Sabine and other youth activists further down the road, especially in areas where we who've been at this a little bit longer may have some blind spots, whether it's outreach over social media or using new technologies like drones, or even embracing things like citizen science or biomimicry, right? All these other venues connected to the marine realm. Very, very exciting, I have to say.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Russell. And thank you, Sabine, so much. And we hope to see you very soon.